Okay, I don't know if we're live. I don't know. This might just be recorded, in which case I'd have to upload later. Hopefully we're live. It says live, so hopefully it's live. Anyway, so another thing I'm going to be reacting to today is why everything is a rat race now. This kind of stuck out to me. I've listened to the song Rat Race by Bob Marley probably many times now. And something about that phrase and when it kind of resonates. And I think there's a vibe. There's something about this that I think kind of resonates, rings true about kind of the state of society. I don't know that the concept is anything new, but maybe it feels like maybe it's more true now than ever. Maybe. We'll see. Anyway, I'm going to react to this.
You feel it too, don't you? Every day's feeling more and more like a rat race. Well, why is that? How'd that come to be? Well, let me try and thread a through line through what I think is the source of all this. Jack Welch. You see, Jack Welch and his consequences have been an absolute disaster for corporate culture, the corporate workplace, and society as a whole. And yet, in spite of all this, his management philosophies come to dominate MBA programs worldwide for decades now, to the detriment of us all. Leader of GE for over 20 years, Jack Welch has come to be known as one of, if not the greatest CEOs of all time. The GOAT, if you will. So let me walk you through today exactly why that was, why he wasn't, and in fact, why he's, if anything, the WOAT.
Make your family's life much brighter. You will find your work much lighter.
Born and who cares to whoever, Jack Welch became CEO of General Electric, or GE, in 1981. But what is GE? What do they do? Everything is the answer. GE is a pillar of American innovation, ingenuity, and industrial output. GE did jet engines, power plants, appliances, radio stations, TV, computing, chemicals, industrial manufacturing, medical equipment, consumer goods. You name it, GE made it. There once was even a turn of phrase that said, as goes GE, so goes the American economy, and to an extent, that was kind of true. Especially considering GE was over 1% of the American GDP at one point. Now you see, Jack had been working at GE since 1960, back when there was still loyalty between company and employee, and you could work your way up from a lowly junior chemist all the way to the youngest CEO in the company's history. This all almost didn't happen for Jack, actually, back in 1963 when a chemical plant he was in charge of had its top blown off. But luckily, his company didn't have the type of policies he'd later institute, and so Jack got to go on. A lot of Jack's early intents and moves were pretty base, to be honest. For one, he ended up gutting all of the old management that let GE become the bloated bureaucratic mess it became, and wanted to bring a small company culture and atmosphere to GE, which is commendable. His execution, though, is why I'm making this video.
You can have more time for fun and pleasure. Family moments you will treasure.
Now you see, the core issue I take with Jack Welch is his vitality curve, or as it's more commonly referred to as
an ad.
Shopify really enabled us to go from 0 to 7 figures in our first year.
You can see your inventory, you can see your sales.
Rank and yank. You see, it's simple, right? All you do is you rank all your employees from first to last, and then once you line them all up, you go and fire the bottom 10%. It's simple, right? Only issue is that it's an info hazard. It's a mimetic virus. Once you learn about it or see others do it, next thing you know, you're doing it too. It's infectious that way. And so this cognitive...
Real quick, I like that little wireless setup he's got there. I don't know if that mic is duct taped to the stand there, but he's got like some sort of XLR... I'm guessing it's like a, whatever it's called, where it powers the XLR. He probably also either records it on board or sends the signal elsewhere. But like you have to power the... Anyway,
hazard.
I'm nerding
spreads,
out.
Right? You see, in the first year, it actually is a good beneficial thing. That's why it's so enticing. You start off, you're like, oh, let's fire the bottom 10% of workers. And it's so good. Because I don't know if you've ever been someone who doesn't suck at their job, but it's so demoralizing to see some fuckheads around all day just getting the same pay you do or close to in exchange for none of the work that you gotta do. It's so demoralizing. And so when you get rid of the bottom 10%, it's so nice because now you and the other actual productive people on the team don't have this dead weight carrying around all day.
Until it's you that are the bottom 10%. Oh! I haven't seen this video this far in, so, viewer discretion is advised anyway.
Right? It's just so much simpler. And so the first year it happens, everyone's like, oh, it's a good thing, right? But then year 2 it happens again, right? You got to do 10% every year. So year 2 it happens, you're like, okay, but it's still good. A lot of improvements still. We're still happy. Year 3, you're like, okay. I mean, like, I guess there are some improvements. But, like, it's just, we're vibing. It's going well. And then year 4 hits and you're like, holy Jesus, that didn't improve anything at all. Now I'm just paranoid about my job, right? And this is why it never works out. It's why you should never consider it, in spite of how alluring it is, because it's such a short-term mindset to have. It creates this mentality that nothing's permanent. You have no security in your job or wherever you are in life. You're just a fucking grocery bag floating in the wind, just aloft.
Hey man, that's a modern day tumbleweed, right?
Wherever the wind takes you, that's where you're going. And it's terrible for getting any sort of work out of your employees, because if they're never thinking they're going to be here for more than a year, they're never going to give a shit or try and do anything outside of whatever works here and now to keep me in my job one more day, okay? And that is a terrible approach to have to business.
If that is how it works, then that's kind of stressful, right? Like, if you're constantly thinking, like, your job's on the line, you might get cut. And not even, like, from a perspective of being fired, but just from a perspective of, like, hey, man, making cuts this year, your time's up. Like, it's not that you did anything, like, super wrong or anything. It's just your time's up. We're just cutting you. We're just laying you off or whatever, however that works. Like, yeah, if that is indeed common business practice, talk about, maybe a bit stressful, and maybe is that part of why the average person doesn't work like 20, 30, 40 year-long career at the same company anymore. Is that a thing that people used to do? And is this part of why that no longer is the case? Because as far as I've heard, I think nowadays the average person, I've just heard this said, I don't know if this is factual, but I've heard that the average person works, like, 6 or 9 jobs in their career, or in their life or whatever, like different jobs. I could be wrong on that.
In short, it creates a rat race. And you see, at first, it appeared to work well, as it always does. Yeah, over the course of Jack's 20-year career there as CEO of GE, they grew in market cap from $12 billion to over $450 billion. That's an increase of over 37x. Meanwhile, revenue only increased by 4.6 times, but hey, at least profit grew by 8.5. But since the market matters most, Jack was seen as a god. Jack was the golden boy, the first celebrity CEO of the modern era. Jack's word became gospel as a result. Literally was gospel, taught around MBA classrooms worldwide for the next few decades. And so it spread like a disease, like a virus, a mimetic hazard.
Step by step from A to Z helps you live better electrically.
Want a historic example? Look at Microsoft with Steve Ballmer at the helm. Only the elderly may remember this one.
Developers.
Truly the Windows Vista of CEOs. Oh, dear. Shots fired.
If you're creating content that stands out, you are not looking for just music. You are looking for great music.
Great music. So is he actually this sweaty? Or is this like a gag?
Yes!
But Steve Ballmer shot up Microsoft so bad that to this day it's...
Wait a minute. Go back.
Yes!
But Steve Ballmer shot...
So what's this about? These 3 alone wasted $22 billion. Each individually are contenders for worst acquisition ever made. Nokia. Skype. Don't do Skype dirty like that. For a time, Skype was good. Iquanto, I don't know what that is.
Shot up Microsoft so bad that to this day it's marred by this culture of out to get each other, backstabby, no one helps or talks to anyone else except themselves kind of culture.
I didn't know that. Is that true?
That's to this day harming Microsoft's ability to be a
Copilot PC confusing failed mess. I don't use it. I don't really want to use it because isn't it kind of sort of maybe possibly spyware? Recall. I was unironically looking forward to using this on my work PC. Oh, Recall I think is that AI that goes through all of your past stuff that you've done. On my work PC I think makes sense because then you don't have to be as worried about it scanning your personal information. Is that the idea? Go read this article for more on the topic Microsoft's lost decade and Vanity Fair.
A competitive and productive company. Want a more contemporary one? Look at Amazon. Both within their warehouses and at the corporate level. Now, you see, at the warehouses, I forget if this is still the case, but I remember reading an article where they're saying that in the next few years, Amazon, at their current burn rate of employees, will churn through the entire U.S. workforce.
What? That sounds kind of wild. Leaked Amazon memo warns company will run out of people to hire soon. So eventually everyone will have worked at Amazon? Is that what that's kind of saying? Is that true? Am I getting this wrong?
That in. They are doing such a bad job of employee retention that they're going...
So a turnover rate for warehouse and storage employees. So this is, okay, years before opening, Amazon warehouse opening, years after opening. Okay, so this is the turnover rate at warehouse, okay, for warehouse and storage employees, so before Amazon warehouse opens. Okay, so this is all, I'm assuming all other warehouse and storage places, and then BAM turnover rate. If I'm reading this correctly, turnover rate greatly increased for this kind of employee.
Going to eat through every single American worker in a few years. But why is that? I don't know if you guys have ever worked in a warehouse, but I have, and you usually run around all day with a headset screaming at you to go this way, that way, pick these boxes, right? So let's say there's 100 boxes per hour you're supposed to pick at Amazon to start. But then over time, you're like, well, wait, okay, 80% of people can do 120 an hour, so that's the new standard, right? The bar has been raised.
Oh dear.
But then over time, it's like, okay, well now some fuckface wants their Christmas bonus, so they're gonna start peeing in a Prime bottle instead of going to the washroom, right? And so over time, more and more people get that, and again, they're incentivized to get...
And eventually everybody's peeing in Prime bottles.
Continue to cut corners in weird ways like that. Next thing you know, that's the new standard. And that's the issue with the rat race. We're all fucking each other to the point where now we all are just suffering because we've just competed ourselves in this corner where we have the most absurd standards to meet with ourselves because that's just the standard we've set for each other.
So to some degree, I think that this is true, but this probably depends on workplace. So this guy's also giving me weird vibes because I think he's got like a trans flag on the wall. But yet I think that, I don't know if that's a parody hat or if that's an actual Make America Great Again hat. So I don't know. And then there was like a Canadian / whatever other flag mixed in hanging up on the other side of the room. And then he's like, he had a airsoft gun, I assume. But then he's got a knife on the table there. So there's lots of mixed vibes. I don't know exactly what this guy... what his belief system is. He's making some interesting points, but yeah, weird vibe. I don't really know how to read him, but I don't know. Anyway, interesting points. So what he's saying about everybody kind of messing with each other, by proxy of everybody kind of trying to outcompete, it is potentially kind of a vicious cycle if it becomes like that. But I think that, is it possible that this is also a symptom of like big business, like big business, like like if you went to work for some like more local company that was not a countrywide mega corporation, is it possible that things would be more reasonable? Is that possible?
It's awful. And that's the issue with the Amazon warehouse workers, right? You see over time, it's like, yeah, you can keep up this pace for a few months, but as it wears on and on and on, next thing you know, you're going burnout, you're churning through employees, and that's how Amazon's going to run through the whole...
NYT reported Amazon's 3% turnover a week or 150% turnover a year, which means that on average Amazon had to replace its entire workforce every 8 months. Whew, if that's true. Whew.
Entire U.S. workforce.
If we continue business as usual, Amazon will deplete the available labor supply in the U.S. network. In the U.S. network by 2024, the research which hasn't previously... So this is only posted 8 hours ago, though. So, by 2024. So has it happened? Am I reading this correctly?
Population in just a few short years. Unless, of course, that article's out of date. I don't know. I'll check into it. But then even at the corporate level, too, if anything, the corporate level's worse. PIP, Performance Improvement Plan, you ever get put on one of those? quit and find a new job immediately because you're not coming off that shit. The only way you're coming off is onto unemployment. And I think one of the core issues with this whole idea of rank and yank is that eventually, after a few cycles of it, you just run out of bad people to fire. And so you're basically just firing better and better employees every time. And that's Amazon on a macro scale, even at the corporate level. You have all these great employees that
Can we appreciate, I don't know if you saw that down here.
their employees every time. And that's Amazon.
Oh, no, you can't see it. So, can we appreciate the Glock on the beanie bag, wherever that is? I assume that's an airsoft because I think he fired it at the camera. So, I assume it's an airsoft. I could be wrong. But anyway, can we appreciate this? But if it was a camo beanie bag, it'd be better. Probably.
On a macro scale, even at the corporate level. You have all these great employees that are just constantly getting axed because they're just not able to keep up with that running pace for more than a few years. You know, there's multiple CEOs of different companies who have been axed for
The top of this screen is glitching out, but I don't know if that's like intentionally part of the edit or if that's just kind of happening.
Amazon over the they're just constantly getting axed because they're just not able to keep up with that running pace for more than a few years. You know, there's multiple CEOs of different companies who have been axed from Amazon over the years because the system itself is not actually efficient. You're not actually making your company and workforce have better and better employees over time. All you're doing is getting rid of great talent and making everyone who stays remember that you don't have any sort of permanence or workplace job security here. No, this job is not a long-term solution for you. Okay? Don't have any loyalty, don't have any future planning, okay? You're only here as long as we care for you to be here.
It's not for you. I don't know, it's like Amazon warehouse stuff like that probably might be like is that like an in-between job or a means to an end? Like, do people see Amazon warehouse as like a long-term career? I think if I was there, I probably wouldn't want it to be a long-term career. That's me personally. Different people might have different views on it, but
And now you see, you might be thinking to yourself, okay, if I'm a business owner and I see some ex-Amazon employees, I know that they fire a lot of great people. So if anything, Amazon just pre-qualifies people like a university degree used to and say, okay, these people are good. And now you can just hire them without having to deal with a lot of the thought that goes into it, right?
So, well, that depends, because are they firing the good people right now or other people that are not as good?
Only that's not the case, because it's a double-edged sword without having to deal with a lot of the thought that goes into it, right? Only that's not the case, because it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, sure, Amazon employees and ex-Amazoners are great. They're very dedicated, their work is their life is work, sure.
This was literally plug and play within seconds of setting it up. The Bluetooth is so fast.
But on the other hand, these guys suck to work with, okay? Because think of the culture it breeds, right? It makes everyone so distrustful, competitive, politicking, backstabby. These people would be awful coworkers. This culture instills sucks dick. And so you see Seattle, where Amazon's based out of, over the years, the businesses in the area have come to actually call ex-Amazon employees am-holes. Because even though they're great as workers individually, the culture they bring with them and just the general vibe is...
Oh, the vibes, damaged vibes or whatever. Didn't realize how mean this sounds until editing. This is just a generalization, to be clear. I know lots of great people that work at Amazon, none of whom are like this. Yeah, okay, yeah, fair enough. I could understand how he might feel bad editing this, or feel bad about what he said. But essentially, yeah, no, but like the point generally is worth noting, where it's like, if you are part of an environment for an extended period of time that is not good, and you become influenced by that environment, do you take that with you, like that residual impact or whatever, like how it affected you? Do you take that with you to your next workplace? Possibly.
So shit that they just suck. Sure, they bring with them, and just the general vibe is so shit that they just suck to be around. And so many of them just end up avoiding hiring ex-Amazoners in spite of how good they otherwise are on paper.
But if everybody is an Amazon employee, no one will be. I'm just kind of messing. I just wanted to make the Syndrome quote parody. But if they eventually do burn through the entire American workforce, then eventually everyone will have been a current or former Amazon employee, or at least most people. The average person has a higher likelihood of having worked at Amazon, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. So eventually you might just have to deal with hiring somebody, potentially, who worked at Amazon. It might be hard to find somebody who hasn't worked at Amazon.
Even though they're very productive, they've clearly been scarred, marred by this culture, this toxic shithole. Because they're just often politicking, backstabbing, cutthroat dickheads. I mean, even look at WeWork, right? Adam Newman used to do this system too. Despite growing at a record pace, he would axe the bottom 10% of employees every year. Not because they had any funding constraints. No, he stated the only reason he did it was just because Jack Welch did it, and Jack Welch is a good CEO. Again, WeWork, it's all you need to know, okay? If this guy says he's good and he likes his management philosophy, I think that says enough. Now, you see, it's hard to know how prevalent this whole system and management...
I feel like I gotta pause this, okay? I got a sense that she was guiding the company through her astrological intuition. One person who met with Rebecca told Vanity Fair Rebecca spent the duration of the meeting discussing his birth sign to determine he would be a good fit, energetically speaking. He was not. WeWork co-founder Rebecca Newman, cousin of Gwyneth Paltrow, reportedly demands employees be fired within minutes of meeting them because she disliked their energy. Oh dear. Oh dear. Community adjusted EBITDA. A year later, Adam stepped down as CEO. Many WeWork employees would subsequently find themselves out of a job and with worthless stock options. Oof.
I think that says enough. Now, you see, it's hard to know how prevalent this whole system and management philosophy is because no one's ever going to advertise it, right? Companies try and obscure and hide the fact that they're doing the system, not just because it's stupid and as an investor you should flee any company participating in it, but also just because as a prospective employee, who the hell's going to look on and say, yeah, let me sign up for this psychological thriller of an employment? This is my livelihood. This is how I feed my family. Who the hell in the right mind would ever sign up to be subjected to such a system? No one would. That being said, estimates do range from 1 in 10 companies to as much as over half of them doing it. And the issue, again, is just that it's the peak of short-termism, short-term thinking, right? GE fell over 80% over the next 2 decades after Jack Welch retired before finally meeting its demise in 2024, being broken apart into 3 companies. One of them...
Whoa. I didn't know that.
Its demise...
So GE completes three-way split, breaking off from its storied past.
In 2024, being broken apart into 3 companies. One of them was focused on jet engines, another was focused on medical devices, and the final of the 3 was focused on power equipment. Overall, a sad, embarrassing end to a storied American company. This is where this management thinking leads you. And now you see, I could end it here, but the issue is, again, this doesn't stop. None of this stops at companies and corporate culture, okay? It's a mimetic virus, after all. It spreads, it's what it does.
You have to work and slave. You have to work and slave.
You know, I'm a 90s kid. I grew up on a farm outside a small town in rural Nova Scotia.
Canadians do not want to join America, question mark? So he is Canadian.
I'm a 90s kid.
Nova Scotia,
I grew up on
right?
a farm outside a small town in rural Nova Scotia, Canada. Never heard of her, and yet, even I cannot remember a time where life wasn't a rat race in every regard. Mind you, I was definitely ahead of the curve amongst my peers in terms of recognizing this fact as such. But it really does feel more and more every day like we're axing the bottom 10%, so to speak, on societal level, right? And, you know, at first I always thought, it's paranoia, you know?
And does this get worse with AI? Like, first of all, even forget the AI part for a second. If you keep axing the bottom 10%, do you eventually just have like a company of 20 exhausted, wired people? Like wired in the sense that they're all in uppers to keep up with the pace, but they're also fighting the exhaustion and trying not to die or whatever. Is that where that ends? Like, where does that end? If you keep cutting the bottom 10%, where does that end? And with AI now, maybe that's how they might make the excuse to continue this kind of practice. Because do you continue to cut the bottom 10%? And then everything that you can just fill in with AI and robots and stuff, you just do that. So maybe you do only need a company of 20 people and everybody else is just robots. You know, and if that's the future, does that look bleak? And check out all the Jameson's vitamin bottles. And is that Ash's hat from Pokemon? There's a bunch of different things here. Anyway.
Just being paranoid, right? But was it? Was I? Because let's be real here. Every day, more and more people, every single year, they're slipping under that knife's edge, right? Because you see, it starts before you're even sentient, right? As a parent, you gotta make sure your kid goes to the right preschool so that they make the right friends and don't wind up like me, not speaking French, because you gotta enroll your kid in French immersion. You don't want them to be uncultured, right? Like me. And so you wanna make sure that they get set up that way. And then, of course, as a kid, when you're in school, you first come to realizing, I gotta get good marks, because marks are all that matters in our meritocracy or myth thereof. If we do believe in that, that means you gotta get the best marks possible, because your marks determine what school you go to, and what school you go to determines what career you get and where you can go in life, and that's all that matters.
The only thing is, I think that to some degree this may be changing. It's weird because, like, you could probably find examples out there where there's people that might talk about it not being a big deal if you went to Ivy League or college, university or not. But then how many jobs still require a bachelor's degree or an MBA or whatever it is, depending on the kind of job you go for. Like, and the other thing that's a kicker is like the whole 3 years experience or 5 years experience or 3 to 5 years experience, or even the 1 to 3 years experience or 1 year's experience. Because like if you're a junior in the field getting out, you're just like, you haven't even gotten hired yet. And it's like, how many people are blocked off from like most jobs just because they don't have like that standard 1 year or 1 to 3 years under your belt or whatever. So, you know, like, where do you go from there? Anyway, he's probably right on some things, but I think I'm just going to say I think that this is changing to some degree, and some companies may even see these higher up schools as a risk because of the kind of ideological effect it can have on the students and graduates that come from there. Anyway.
Is making sure you're not winding up living out your mom's basement, right? God fucking forbid. And so that's where we all start, right? It's all from the marks. You gotta get the best marks. You gotta achieve, because otherwise, what else is there in life? For the middle and upper middle class out there, that's all that matters. You gotta get out. You gotta go conquer the world. Get the best marks possible. The rat race is on. And look, I don't want to be all Jordan Peterson, oh, but the rats. But look, okay, I don't give a rat's ass. Okay, we all live it every day. And you see all of that shit going on for marks, right? It's a rat race. So any way you can get ahead is the best way to be, right? So now, next thing you know, everyone's got their own independence learning plan, IAP, IPP, suck my, whatever you want to call her, wherever you're from. Everyone's got one nowadays because...
At the high end, 20% of students have individualized education programs or IEPs in Pennsylvania, New York, and Maine. U.S. public school students with a disability recognized under federal law. So it's showing that there was some increase. So IEPs went up to from 13%, I think, dipped down just slightly, when then went up to just over 15 here. I don't know what 504s is. By school years ending and dates shown, IEPs and 504s refer to plans under different federal laws for students with disabilities in education. I had an IEP in high school, but it wasn't for anything other than essentially giving me more time to do tests, because I was pretty slow and methodical. It wasn't just necessarily being slow and methodical, but I think it partly stems from I would zone out a lot. Especially in elementary school. I think it happened I had issues with focus and stuff, especially I think, or probably more so, I'm going to assume more so in the juniors of high school, but it might have been throughout to varying degrees, but I had an IEP just to basically give me more time to do tests and things like that. I think I actually got to go to a separate exam room as well, where it was you didn't have to do your test in around anybody else, so you could just have a quiet space. I don't even think that I needed that. I took it because it was available, or whatever, but I don't think I even needed the quiet space. It's just more time to do the test, literally just more minutes, right? But that was, I think that was it for my AP, so it wasn't anything too crazy.
Because you got to make sure your kid doesn't get behind. Because if you don't have your own IAP or whatever the fuck, that means that your kid is now screwed. Because if everyone's got one and you don't, now you are behind. That's the issue with the rat race. We're all just cutting off limbs, trying to make sure that we don't fall behind. And now we're all fucking paraplegic, and we've done this to ourselves. It's our fault. And but it's just the rat race. That's how fucking shit goes, okay? Oh, but the rats. Oh, and then the rats.
Stab yourself.
Sorry, what was I doing again? Right? And now, okay, oh, but if you don't have an...
This editing is kind of original. I don't know if I've ever seen a YouTube video like this where it's a high up, probably on a tripod or monopod or C-stand, light stand, whatever. I don't know what he's filming on. I'm going to guess an Osmo Pocket 3 or whatever, like the most recent DJI little tiny camera with the little built-in gimbal on it. I'm guessing that mounted on top of this big pole stick C-stand, light stand, whatever, and he just has it set to like track him, and he's walking around the room. He's probably, I'm gonna guess, recording the audio separately. Probably has a 32-bit float recorder where that, preamp or whatever you would call it, where it powers the XLR mic plugged in there, and he's syncing up audio in post probably. But some of the editing is kind of like interesting, just like how, I don't know what he's using to overlay the images on the face, and then like some of the editing is like more on the basic side, but it's got like that meme kind of quality to it, and then some of it's just like simple news overlays. But what he did with the knife there, where he transitioned the screen, it faded with the direction of the knife, like there's some original stuff. It's a bit of a combination of interesting stuff. Is that Meghan Markle's book there? Anyway.
IEP or disability.
Does she have a book? Maybe, I don't know.
Now your kid doesn't get extra time, and all the kids that do doesn't say shit about that on their applications to college.
Are IEPs only for extra time, or is there other things an IEP could be for? I'm not an expert on this.
Right? And now, okay, oh, but if you don't have an IEP or disability, now your kid doesn't get extra time, and all the kids that do doesn't say shit about that on their applications to college. And if anything, that might be a benefit. Oh, look at me, I've overcome trauma, I've overcome all these different hurdles, right? That's what
depending
benefit. Oh, look at me, I've overcome trauma.
Depending on how pro DEI a school/admission office is.
I've overcome all these different hurdles, right? That's what it looks like on paper. It looks better to have help.
I can already hear people who were only half paying attention rushing to the comments. Oh no.
It looks worse to not have help. That's the society we live in. And so if you don't do that for your kid is now behind, and you fucked your kid in a way, right? Yeah, but it doesn't just stop at extra time or IEPs. No. There's a lot more you can do too.
Poor choice of words. I think that the one I know what he meant, but I think poor choice of words on that one comment he said.
Get ahead. Sure, you could be antisocial, you could eschew all these other things, but what about performance enhancing drugs, right? Again, if anything, it looks good on paper to be going to a college applying
on roids in college.
Saying, I got all this done while having ADHD, right? The fact remains that once a few of you get on it, now if you're not on it, you're behind. Everyone who is on it's going to be able to do more with less and have better results while being able to do other things with their time. It could be small scale too. Like, now I am better at this class, so I could dedicate more time to that class. Maybe I could go out with my friends more. It doesn't matter. All that matters is that they will do better, and there's nothing you can do to stop it.
Has this guy been stewing on this or cooking on this for a little bit now? Because I don't know how many takes this is done in, but he's like just going. And it's like, I don't know if it's a continuous thought or if it's like, I don't know, but it's like he's got quite a lot to say on it,
Unless you also take the pill. You gotta take that little blue Vyvanse pill, because otherwise you are behind, and that's the definition.
Oh, dude, Vyvanse, I had some of that in high school, although I didn't have 60 milligrams. I think I had 40 milligrams, and then I kind of felt my heartbeat in class one day, and so then I mentioned that to the pediatrician or whatever, mentioned it to my mom, and then it was like, essentially we reduced the dosage because we thought I was having heart palpitations. Whether it was actually having heart palpitations or sometimes maybe just when you focus or when you don't breathe for a minute, but you just kind of like feel your heart or maybe even slightly hear your heartbeat. Maybe that's a normal thing, maybe it's not. I don't really know. Anyway, we reduced the dosage. I was on Vyvanse for a period of time. It gave me like, I think, pretty substantial appetite loss. Anyway.
To the rat race. We're all getting fucked in the ass because of it. Because if you don't participate, you are fucked, and there is no sort of societal barrier or safety net to protect you from this. We all just do this to ourselves and each other every day. I've done it. You probably do it. We all fucking do it. Do you do it? Facts. And that's the thing, though.
The fact that he might just be like going off on this, and it, like, is this just like his, I don't know this guy, is this just like his YouTube studio office? Are there like other people here just working on stuff and he's ranting in the other room because he's like, do you do it, or what, have you done it, whatever?
Every day, you see, every day we do this to ourselves and each other. More and more people slip under that knife's edge. Every year, more and more people are getting fucked by it, but I'm not, okay? We aren't, okay? We do what has to be done to make sure.
This feels kind of schizo. Is that reasonable to say? But this guy is making some points, though. Like, so the general theme of what he's saying, I don't know if you could deny that that is true, or at least part of the reality, because, like, how often is what he's saying happening? You know, like, how often is it happening where you are, because it's always kind of like getting an edge on your competition. Some people might do the backbiting stuff. Hopefully some people don't. Hopefully more people don't do the backbiting stuff. And then, you know, like, always trying to stack all these multipliers and all these things to give you an edge in the game of career, right? But then it's kind of never ending pressure potentially when you play that game. And you know, where does it end? Yeah, no, it really can be a rat race. And I mean, it also probably depends on your field and how high level you're competing at. But I don't know necessarily what the alternative is, because so much of the West is based around, like, kind of competition and winning and capitalism. And there can be probably many good things or good sides to that. Because, like, what's the inverse? You want to have some sort of communistic centralization of control? Don't we have enough examples of that? You know? So, but then, like, people might say because of these problems, or these perceived problems in capitalist society, therefore bad, therefore people might say, therefore we shouldn't do it, or we need to change it, or whatever. Like, things probably always need to be changed to some degree, but usually whenever people make the argument, they're kind of coming from more of like a probably a socialistic or communistic standpoint. One of the better arguments I've heard in support of capitalism and against kind of this socialism or communism is the idea that the government people think that they could spend your money better than you can for yourself, or the idea that they know what's better for you than you do, or they know how to use your money for you better than you do. Like, basically, I think it kind of boils down to like this nanny state example, and how. And some people might make the claim that they legit think that a government would make a better use of a person's money than they would. But at the same time, like, if you encourage that mentality, where does that lead to? Doesn't that lead to just like a bunch of baby people, you know, that can't do anything for themselves, and they need the nanny state government to do everything? And then, like, also the whole socialist communist perspective of the centralization of control, I think they believe this kind of unrealistic thing that you could have a centralization of control and it be good and not corrupted. Whereas, like, if you understand sinful human nature, you would probably want a system that provides as much freedom to the individual within reason as possible, so that each person could kind of hopefully do what's best for themselves and their family. And then it's like up to each one, or each family, as opposed to the government, which could be corrupted. And then once that centralization of control vector or whatever is corrupted, then that corruption would then affect everything probably very immediately. Because it's like if the government controls everything from all transportation to manufacturing to electricity to like all these different, like if they control like literally everything and they get corrupted and then they no longer want to serve the best interest of the people for whatever reason, then can't the whole thing potentially go belly up like very quickly? Whereas if you kind of like decompartmentalize, or is it compartmentalize? If you have it where a mix of public and private sector and different vectors where the citizenry can hold their government accountable, where all the control isn't centralized, then don't you have more safeguards against tyranny? Because like, it's like people believe that you could have a government that's like perfect and not tyrannical, or doesn't have an inclination or possibility or potential to be tyrannical. It's like it's living in like an idealistic world rather than the real world, potentially. Does that make sense? Is that fair? Is that a fair statement to say? So anyway, the more kind of independence and freedom to the individual, that might be potentially a safeguard, further safeguard against tyranny.
Sure, we keep our head above water, yes, and then more and more people keep slipping under the fucking water. Under that knife's edge. Even in your career, once you're done all of the institutional stuff, now you're working at a job, all it takes is one fuckhead to decide to work late, and now if you don't, it could be, lack of promotions, they get promoted, I don't, could be grand scale, like if everyone starts...
But another thing worth noting is that guy that's working late as likable or as good of a person as you are? Because like I'm hesitant. I think I'm hesitant to say it that way, because it's like essentially it's like that person might be working late, but are they a jerk? Right? Like, does the boss like that person beyond simply the fact that they stayed an extra 2 hours? Like, is that person more likable? Like, and at the same time, then that could become a backstabbing thing, because then you're just trying to like if you just start to try to flatter the boss all the time, like, don't do that either. But just like be a reasonable, like, good person, or however is the proper way to say that. Just be a reasonable person. Like, just like, don't be a jerk, don't be annoying, do your job well. But like, if you don't stay that extra 2 hours or whatever, and the other guy does, but the other guy doesn't have other qualities or qualifications that you have, it might not necessarily just be a one and done where like you get let go because you didn't work late. And like, what is the requirement? Is the requirement to work late? Because if you're like required to crunch, that might be a different scenario. But like, you know what I mean? Like, I not everything's necessarily this kind of one and done thing, but what the guy's saying, generally speaking, across the average scenarios, it probably holds some water. And so then now it's like you kind of have to, and it's tough because like there's only so many jobs, right? So like eventually somebody's probably got to work for some big corporation if they need to make money to eat, you know. So at some point, some people may possibly inevitably run into this. But if you can just like find a good company, and you have to maybe also believe that it is possible to do that in the first place. But if you find a good company and you just kind of get in there and build relationships with people, kind of build just good, build good relationships, and if they like you and they see you as really part of the team and stuff, then do you have more job security than you would just being some employee number at an Amazon warehouse or whatever else, right? So there might be some nuance to this potentially.
Doing it, now no one gets any advantage for it, but for the one guy who doesn't do it, now they're getting fired for doing literally what was expected of them on paper. Because once everyone starts doing it, everyone's working late. Now if you don't work late, you are fired. You see, all it takes is just a few people to opt for that edge, and now you've got to do it too, because otherwise you're gonna fall under that knife's edge and get hacked to pieces. University degrees went through this too, eh? Used to be an edge, now it's just table stakes. And we're all worse off for it. And the worst part is, when you get that degree, it comes with expectations, doesn't it? You see, if you aren't doing above average, you're gonna feel like a failure. And the knock-on effects from that are ruinous. Like, if you're working at a bar after getting a degree, you're gonna be wondering, what the hell did I spend half $100K in half a decade for, right? I just did that to get a leg behind?
You can have your cake and you can eat it. Make life sweet, it's hard to beat it.
Alright, look, I gotta wrap this shit up, but you guys remember how a video or two ago I was making jokes about Neuralink, don't you? You guys understand that's the next edge approaching, right? Now look, I hope and pray that actually I think I will be of the last generation to slide under the wire and avoid that knife's edge. But look, okay, regardless if you guys can say the same or not, never forget, the knife's edge is always approaching. Prepare to get shaved.
To be so free when you live better electrically.
Oh, what'd you guys think? So, where's the? There you go. Okay, so there's some good points. There is some good points made there. Yeah, there's some nuance. It can be tough because it's like I don't know that every job and every career is going to be like that, but it's probably. I don't know to what degree it's a thing, but it's probably a thing. You know, like a lot of the stuff that he's talking about. Like I'm just hesitant to speak on absolutes about things I'm not really too familiar about. Although sometimes I may do that, but yeah, it's probably the case what he's talking about, at least in some work sectors. But does it have to be that way for you? But even like when people say things like that, what kind of bums me out is it's like, what would be best is if the average person's quality of living could be made better. Not just, oh, well, if I do the right things, then it will be better for just me. You know, like, because yeah, maybe you'll win. But, like, doesn't it suck that everybody else or all these other people lose? And does it have to be that way? Because we're in this... It's a murky time because, like, with AI and everything, it's like we don't necessarily know. I've talked about this in different ways or varying ways to varying degrees, whatever, in the past, like at least in one video, where it's like we maybe don't know which way this is going to go with AI and how it'll pan out. It all depends on, like, is the tech good enough? Is it good enough to replace humans if put into humanoid robots? Can all the robots just immediately take over? In that case, does like 70% of the jobs immediately just go away? All this other stuff, where does it go? Where are we going? What does the future of work look like? Yeah, it could be looking kind of bleak, but you never know. Don't give up. Because, you see, here's the thing. It could be very easy to just, black pill people. And, like, this is the thing, because we're at this stage now on YouTube and with Gen Z and everything where there's probably a good amount of money to be made in blackpilling people. It's almost kind of like race baiting, but instead this isn't something along like a racial issue. It's more just along like a doomer mindset kind of issue. And anybody can be a doomer, but it doesn't mean that you should be. Anyway, so is it possible that things could get better? And is it possible that maybe things won't suck that bad? But it could also suck. But, like, maybe we should be hesitant before we, like, jump the gun and, like, say, like, it's over, you know? So don't give up. Because, hey, man, maybe you never know, right? But, yeah. How should I end this? Work hard, work smart. Do what you're meant to do in this life. I'm tired. Well, I'm a little bit tired. It's like 12:34. It's 12:34 a.m. And this is going to be my last live I'm going to do today. This would have started yesterday. But anyway, so is it a rat race? Yeah, to varying degrees. And it's tough. Because, like, what's the inverse? And, like, if this was the guy Welch, Mr. Welch, or whatever, if he hadn't done all that with General Electric, would things be better now? Like, would there be less of a rat race, or was this inevitable with maybe technological advancement or education advancement or whatever? So, like, where do we go from here? What do we do? Yeah. because a lot of it's kind of about like getting an edge and stuff like that. But what do you do? Yeah, like once it gets to the point with the whole Neuralink thing and AI, like here's the thing: it's like the split in the road here, the 2 lanes in the road here, is probably around like what would take the jobs first? Would it be AI or would it be Neuralink? Because here's the thing: if you have Neuralink, do they still have to pay you as an employee? Is it worth instead having the AGI inside the robot instead of paying you as an employee? Because is it possible that the AGI could maybe do everything to the same level of capability that you could do, except for maybe the creative side of things? So for most job sectors, when it's not really a creative side thing, is it possible that they would just use the robots and they wouldn't have to pay you even if you did have the Neuralink? I'm not getting no Neuralink, but anyway, like the only way I would entertain the idea probably is if it was just headgear. Like if you just wore this headband and that's it, like just a headband, like you don't need no implants or anything. Okay, maybe we'll see. I don't know, we'll see. You know, how I feel about it, whether I feel convicted about it or not, kind of thing. You know, like, because for me, from a Christian perspective, like it's like I kind of like I care about things like how, like what's the context, what's the kind of moral situation around things, you know, that matters. But yeah, beyond that, things like, yeah, it like, have you ever listened to the Bob Marley song Rat Race? Anyway, there's kind of maybe 1 or 2 at least interesting lines in that song. Maybe it's worth a listen. Maybe if you don't want to listen to it, don't listen to it. But anyway, all this said, regardless of whether it's a rat race or not, whether times are tough or not, where is your soul going? Because this life is temporary. Hopefully, standard of living things can get better, but at the end of the day, where's your soul going? So, yes, until next time, thanks for watching, and believe on the Lord Jesus Christ.